O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
For fuck's sake, pick a side and point in a direction, right?
Yeah, so my beef here is that I think that the red pill, as it were, by the way, David Patrick Harry, I don't know if you've ever met Rollo Tomassi.
What's going on, Rollo? How you guys doing?
Maybe
How's it going, David?
Cheers.
Yeah. Welcome to the convo. But so my big issue with it when we go back and forth is I don't think that they can make good claims for what people should be doing. But the more that I engaged with them, I found out something interesting. The guys who are really into this don't actually want to. That's not their goal. Their goal is totally different instead. So their goal actually is just to say, here's a data packet, do what you want. Because if you're not informed about what's even happening, you can't even make those odds, right? You don't have the core information which is necessary for you to even make those ought claims for these descriptors for society. So what I did was, instead of going, yeah, fucking degen scumbags, is I said, look,
once in a while you need to do that, right?
Yeah, instead of that, why don't I actually try to take your information, apply it to my worldview, and see how it fits? Well, interestingly, it's a 1-to-1 almost from the Christian worldview. Let me explain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Christian worldview says it's really it's optimal if you maintain chastity until marriage. And the red pillars go, yep, that's true, because these men, they sure like those women with low body counts, and they sure like these women did not have their baggage. So the red pillars go, yep, you Christians are right about that. And the Christians go, okay, you should probably get married young because it's better for fertility. The red pillars go, yep, that's also true, and it stops feminism, and it stops all sorts of things that they could get into if you marry them at 18, 19, 20 years old, right? So you start mapping these on one for one. You go,
perfect world.
Yeah, you go, holy shit, we actually agree with a whole lot of these descriptive claims here, right, when they're applied to our worldview. But then here's where all hell breaks loose, where the tires come off.
And then there's Pearl.
Right. Yeah, where the tires come off of this car and the fucking thing turns into a wreck is this. The red pillars come out, they're like, listen, let me tell you what's actually happening right now. What's actually happening is that this small subset of men, about 10% of them, they're banging all the chicks. All of them. Not some of them. They got all of them, and they're just smashing them like no tomorrow. And by the time they're all done smashing these chicks, and all these chicks want one of these particular guys, so they're all competing for them, right? And then by the time they're done and they realize, oh shit, I'm screwed, I've hit the wall or whatever, and I'm never going to get one of these guys, you can then have her. She's there for you to go ahead and pick up and go home with, right? And so the Christians look at that and they go, the second they hear that, they go, Rah! Because they can't envision that female mate selection could actually be that primitive. But when you look at all the data, you look at all the polling, and you look at all of these dating sites, the dating sites are the big tells, right? You look at Tinder, you look at all the, it's always the same story over and over and over. So then they get into this fight over degeneracy. And what the Christians say is, look, what we want to do is convert society to Christianity so that we don't have this kind of like overage of a degenerate problem. And the red pillars go, oh, well, that's nice. And here's what's going to happen. What's going to happen is these chicks are all going to go bang these top 10% still. And then when they're in their 30s, you could pour some fucking holy water on the whore's head and marry her up. That's literally this whole fight summarized, okay, in like the best way I could possibly summarize it. That's what's going on. Now, I do have a solution for this, an answer to this, and I have a debate coming up where I'm going to really get into this because I really do have a great answer for it. But that's the fight.
Yeah.
So Andrew, why is it that red pillars aren't just becoming Christian? What's this? Why are they two different positions then?
Yeah. Here's why. All right. So, yeah, go ahead, bro.
You go. No, I was going to say.
Okay.
I wrote it. It took 3 years of my life to write an entire book as part of the series about that. But continue.
Oh, well, I was just saying the reason for this is because the red pillars are like, well, that's nice. You can go ahead and you can even take this top 10%, this top 10% tier of men, and you could make them all Christians tomorrow. The problem then still doesn't go away, because what'll happen is those women will still vie over the top 10% of those Christian men until they're 30. And then when that happens, you marry them up. They barely have any children. You might have them chased 30-year-old virgins, which might be better, but chances are pretty good that out of that 10% of men, they're going to have some moral failings. They're going to have some, oops, I slipped my dick in her. Right?
So Andrew, what you're saying is like a 7 male should be more aligned with, being marrying and procreating with like a 5 or a 4 woman, right?
No, this is a problem, right? So you'll hear this from the other side. They'll go, what about the force? Look, if you're a 7, just settle for 4, because men will do that, right? They don't care. They're like, hey, you're super nice and you cook really good, and we have sex every morning. This is great. Let's get married and live happily ever after, even if you're a 4. But here's where the rub is, right? Even the 4s want the top 10%. They don't want you. They still don't fucking want
it's luxury. You. It's all luxury modernity.
Yeah,
to
it's
me.
all exactly. That's exactly right. It's
but this is what I just talked about.
One step further, they feel like they deserve, and then
that's true.
Exactly.
It's a fake thing they're interacting. Go ahead, David.
Well, that's what Rachel and I recently talked about with this whole Christ pill, red pill thing that emerged. There's this real naivete within Christian dating, assuming, again, some part of the Christ pill narrative that I've seen online is that, like Andrew says, you make an altar call, you get baptized, and now these girls are repented, and everybody gets together, and it's, happy ever after. And it's like, no, hypergamy still exists within Christian dating. Getting genuine desire and attraction from a woman still exists, because we're talking about submitting. So we're talking about a more traditional role. And so a whole point of Rachel and I's conversation is that, look, if you look at parts of the red pill, we can agree with all these things in regards to building the right sexual dynamics, even within a Christian relationship. It comes into these larger moral claims that, yeah, we would say we have more of a prescriptive remedy to the descriptive reality of the red pill.
Right.
But there's a real naivete online that somehow if you just take the Christ pill, you swallow the Christ pill, and now you're going to get married. It's like, no, guys, in Orthodoxy, for example, we have a massive growth of young men. 70 to 75% of all new converters are
because
young
of
men.
me.
And
because
so
100% because of me.
We have all these women. We have all these young men, and then some of the women in the parishes, and they still are not getting married. Why is that? And it has to do with genuine attraction and all these same secular things that women are affected with. There's still, and it's not that we don't have grace for these women. So there's a middle space, but there's a totally naivete in regards to the Christ pill, and it's totally unrealistic.
Did you say something about
over on David?
Good, Benj. Good, Benj.
Just like secularism is tied to genuine attraction, or
No.
giving into one's genuine attraction is secular.
Reality is.
Reality secular?
In regards to the intersexual dynamics, that, for example, a lot of young men have difficulties just carrying on a conversation. And so building interest in a woman and just being able to form these relationships.
So intimacy.
These are I mean, like secular skills, but all of this is going to be necessary. So when the red pill, I wouldn't subscribe with aspects of what they would remedy the degenerate situation we're in, but we still have a problem with getting young men and getting young women and the women wanting to occupy these traditional Orthodox Christian marriage roles.
Rachel May, fat guts. Yeah, even Christian women don't want fat guts.
Right. Well, that's the thing is so take a look, for instance, Jimbob. If you take you and Benj and Rollo all together, right? The only guy here who can match David Patrick Harry in looks is me, right? All of you ugly fucks, not even close. So, but
yeah, nice beard, by the way.
Fuck you. Tell him, tell him, David, how hard it was for you.
Yeah, so I've been a content creator, been an Orthodox Christian, and trying to find a wife. It took me over 3.5 years to find the woman that is like excited to occupy this role and is with my mission. And that's where I talked about aspects of the dating world are true in regards to the red pill, and it's still true with the Christian world, and it's not easy. And so and that's where the average Christian guy, that's why they appreciate the content, because I tell them, I get it, guys. Like, it's not easy, even when you're in the church, even when you're around women that want traditional men. because we're still talking about a lifelong
You
commitment. We're not
really
interested in
drag the
divorce and all this other
guys.
stuff.
You need to drag the guys from Iron Disciples into this conversation at some point. I don't know if you're familiar with the Iron.
Yeah, I know those guys. Where are they at?
They're in Sarasota, Florida, but they've got their own podcast and stuff.
Well, if they're available, they can pop on.
Sure.
So it sounds like
You can send them the link, bro.
Go ahead, Benj.
No, is the sex dynamics worth the bother if nobody's procreating? If you take procreation out, is it worth the bother?
No, that's why they're not
Yeah.
procreating. So this is the key, right? So
Is
there's
the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah, this is the key. If women are willing to wait, if they're willing to hold out for a long period of time to get what they consider whatever this demographic of the top 10% is, this is where you come into the problem. If by the time they are ready to settle down, they're in their 30s, let's say, right? How many children are they going to be able to have versus when they marry at 18, 19, 20, 21? It's going to be a lot fewer, and more of them are actually going to, have stillbirths and have birth defects and things like this. The rates astronomically go up, especially after 28. And if you look into the numbers, if you look at the United States, we're the only developed country really in the entire world that is having an increase in infant mortality. And this is not due to a limited access in medical care, which is what the dumbass progressives say because they're fucking idiots. It's due to the fact that women are having children later and later in life. And so that's one of the key reasons that the birth rate has plummeted, not just because of the pill, not just because of abortion, but because they're having children later and later in life.
Yeah. Well, why have kids?
Yeah, if you could just coom all day, right? And there's you don't see any
or wine cat mom.
Wine
cat.
All right. I think the JP Morgan article said that 45% of American women are going to be single and childless.
Okay,
by 2030.
Can I step in on that one, please?
Yeah, go ahead.
We'll butcher that one even more. Okay, so that's from the Morgan Stanley. It's called Rise of the She Economy. It doesn't say anything about childlessness because they'll probably still have kids. They'll just be single and have kids. You can actually do that if you're so I love it when people throw like I've even seen like what Patrick Bet David was throwing that. I'm like, God, what the stop. That was from it was a forecast Morgan Stanley back in 2018. Yeah. And they were the prediction is that 42% of women that are in their prime working age or demographic, which is 25 to 44, will be single by 2030. It didn't say anything about childless, but like the presumption is that most of them will be. Right. But the idea is that, but remember, you don't have to be married to have kids today because 42% of children are born out of wedlock as of I think 2020 was the last time I saw that stat. It might be more right now.
So the thing is, people are acting because of convenience and luxury. They're acting primarily on immediacy and convenience. And so when people make choices about these things, they're basically saying, well, why the fuck would I do that? Right? That's like a 20-year choice. Why would I make a 20-year choice if I don't have to right now? And so it seems to be a massive problem. And like Andrew said, it doesn't matter if you're red pill or secular or Christian, just like David Patrick also said, is that if you don't fix this issue of the values that you put on your life and your decisions, if they're not like in a long-term storyline, like your entire life, like what is your life going to be? Yep. It seems like there's no way out of the immediacy taking hold of men and women, right? So we're both at the effect of this, and luxury, and the irony is that we have this technology where all five of us could get on the fucking thing and complain about it at the same time, but it doesn't. It's still true though. It's like how do I teach my daughters and my son how to teach them how to operate outside of immediacy? I don't know the answer to that. I honestly don't know the answer.
Is that impossible, Andrew? Andrew's shaking his head.
No, it is possible. Absolutely possible. And I'll tell you why it's possible, because it's a concept that's called grand strategy. And if you've read anything by, was it Robert Greene? No. Well, but it comes from that. Yes, that's actually the term, but it's grand strategy. It's seeing the war instead of the battle. Okay, so for instance, and I came to this after doing Fresh and Fit so many times with young women who are like 19 years old and they've got like a body count of like 20 plus, partners or whatever.
Which isn't that uncommon.
It came from dealing with women who are very young, who are like 18, 19 years old, who they're just living in the moment, right? They're what are called temporal provincials, right? They don't care about what happened in the past. They don't care about what happened in the future. They only care about what happens right now. And so
at least they don't have any baggage with that philosophy. Right?
And you know who does?
It's erased. It's erased.
Is the woman who is between the ages of 29 and 31, who is now going, oh shit, I need to get my life together. Oh shit, I better get with a guy before the lights come on at this club, because I better be able to leave with somebody pretty soon, because they are no longer able to compete in that sexual marketplace the way that they could when they were 18, 19 years old. So when they get to that point, which is what I call the epiphany phase, that's when they find God, and that's when they come back to church, and that's when they want to make you wait for the pussy that she just gave to the guy like 2 years ago at the club, right? So that the whole thing happens right around 20, 30, 29, 30, 31, which, by the way, is the 30 for women is the most common age or average age of first marriage for women. So that's when they have this sort of epiphany right there. And what do they say? I need to find a guy. I need a dude with some benefits.
Truth lights. Truth lights.
I'm done with I had my fun in my fun in my 20s, and now I want to get serious. I want to get right with God, and I got to find a guy for the long haul. The problem is now that they're at that point, the guys that they want are hitting their stride. They're starting to get into their peak potential years, and they don't want to have anything to do with them. They want to get with a woman who's younger, because now they have the options to actually be able to do that. So what happens with me is when I talk to these women, they go, Rollo, how can I find a husband? Where are all the good guys? How come they're all intimidated by me? How come they're all why do they have fragile egos and whatever feminism is sort of feeding them as like sort of the rationale du jour that helps them sort of cope with the situation that they're in at that point. And now I'm comparing the two. I got the 18, 19-year-old girl, and I've got the girl who's like, say, 30, 31 years old right now. And the problem is they never thought about the future. They never saw the battlefield from the God's eye view of the battlefield. They were only right there. And it's the difference between grand strategy and just taking one battle at a time. And they get to the point where they go, oh, I should have thought and planned, like you were saying before, I should have thought and planned out things a whole lot better than I actually did. The problem is if their fathers, their brothers, their uncles, a wise male says, hey, you should really start thinking about grand strategy. That sounds like chauvinism. That sounds like misogyny. That sounds like you're trying to control their lives and to take some sort of fiendish manipulative power over them by saying, hey, you might want to think about where you're going to be in the next 10 fucking years. And they don't want to hear that, because that sounds like what they've been taught is patriarchy.
Oppression. It's oppression.
Yeah. But that's what the church and the true patriarchy is for. Because the church guides the men, because the men are focused on God, and then the men can actually be the leaders that spiritually lead the family. Mm-hmm. I think that's why, again, the point of the conversation is that the religious framework at least already provides that sort of God's eye worldview from what the meaning of a life is.
The problem with that, Dave, is that, and this is I think the biggest failing of Christian conservatism today is that it is 100% responsibility for men and 0% authority for men. So you have all the, like, I hear Ben Shapiro, I hear Matt Walsh, I hear Candace Owens, you name the guy from freaking Daily Wire or PragerU, and I will tell you it's the same damn story, which is the way we're going to turn Western society around is if men would just take more responsibility. It's like they don't have the authority to enact that responsibility in the first place. So all the responsibility in the world makes
who's taking their authority from them
to enforce
that doesn't make any sense. So this is like hypo agency longhouse thinking. We don't have any authority, just like assert authority.
What's authority?
Okay, so you don't have in a gynocentric social order, just what I just said a minute ago.
Legally?
Legally,
just leverage in the dynamic of a relationship
socially in the first place, because everybody wants to say that a marriage ought to be 50-50, right? Well, everybody's an equal partner or a co-equal partner in this thing. In fact, you'll hear people they don't even refer to their husband or wife as a husband or wife. They refer to it as their partner, right? So there's this idea that there's this egalitarian equalism between men and women. As we were saying before, who should be the leader? Who should be the one who makes the calls? Who's the captain of the ship? Who's directing the course of that family and that marriage and everything else? Now, from a Judeo-Christian perspective, it's the man, right? I mean, whether you read it in the Bible or you just look at it from just simple...
And who bestows that on the man?
Dimorphism. The man is the one who's providing protection, provisioning, and parental investment for that woman. It used to be, patriarchy, by the way, is a much more balanced system than what we have right now. Because patriarchy, in its idealized sense, meant that a man had responsibility for his wife, his kids, if his kids were like criminals, he was guilty of the crime. If the wife like sent the house or had sent the business into bankruptcy, he was the one that was responsible for that. But he also had the authority to rule over the wife, for the authority to rule over the children, to make decisions for those children and have them defer to his authority.
And the authority came from somewhere. This is just right. I just get a little. I follow you guys up to the point where you say, well, but men don't have any authority. It's like, wait,
not now, anyways.
Well, where does that come from?
Still. We do still have the authority because what you call egalitarianism, as Andrew argues a lot, is that it's still upheld by pure force. So the men still have the muscle and they're still using it to some minimal extent. It's just that their balls have one of those rubber bands around it, like you do with the cows, and so they're kind of like wobbling around, right?
But who did that? Like, who's responsible for men not having authority?
Men did that.
Why?
Well, because they fell trapped to egalitarian. No, they fell trapped to a false doctrine.
Yeah.
That's why Christianity is so important, is because without Christianity, you have no oughts. You just have praxeology where you're just describing things to death.
In tying what Jimbob and Rollo were saying, I would agree.
Useful. Put it that way. You have to make it useful. Go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
I was going to say, I agree with you, Rollo. That's why, again, as Orthodox, I would argue theologically and philosophically that the errors of the Reformation and really the errors between the Great Schism of the Orthodox Church in 1054 and the Catholic Church have led to presuppositions of progress, be it theologically, philosophically, and now in this idea of just general Western society and this belief of moving towards utopianism, and that Protestantism can't save us. And I firmly believe in the next couple generations, like it's going to die out, because if you just look at the average age and you look at what's happening in culture, it can't resist it because it doesn't have a sacramental reality in regards to that everything that we believe is actually true. In addition to the semiotics and the archetypes, the Petersonian language that people want to use Christianity for. I think it's all that. So it solves, it provides the ultimate prescription for the red pill. But I agree with you in the state of Western culture and that Christianity is absolutely weak and deserves the mocking that it often gets.
What do you mean by Petersonian, you know? It's like fuck you.
Fucko.
Back off, fucko.
I really need a sound drop for Peterson.
I think the big problem almost what you're saying is true, but there's kind of a net problem, which is that as Protestantism dies, and it is dying, and the reason that it's dying off is because they're becoming secular. People are leaving those churches in droves. They're just leaving them as fast as they can possibly.
It was upstaged by more Protestantism.
Yeah, like a brighter one with more colors.
Yeah, right? But I mean, it is. They're leaving it in droves, and you see the kind of traditional churches exploding in popularity, and it's not just here; it's globally. It's global.
I should point out also that this is not just a Christian thing too. This is also for Muslims, for Jews,
yes, for everybody.
Yeah, traditionalism.
The feminism has gotten into everything.
It's like pretty much across the board. And the reason why I can say that is because, like I said, I took about 3 years of my life to do the research and everything for my third book, or my fourth book, which is religion. And my book on religion was really an effort, let's just say, in trying to sort of explain the red pill in religious terms and like why things work. Now, Ben, you were just saying a minute ago, like, secular truth versus religious truth and stuff. Like, the one thing I would say is this: is I think that both can be true at the same time. So, for instance, I think that like a secular truth can also be a religious truth on top of everything else. So if I go and I say, well, the Bible says you shouldn't have sex before marriage. Well, that actually makes pretty good sense in an ideal world. And I point that out in my book. Also, prearranged marriages make a lot of fucking sense. Like from a pragmatic perspective, if you're blending two tribes and you realize your very young daughter can't make really good decisions for himself, or your son doesn't know what he should do. And if you're a wise man, you say, hey, I want to, make sure that I want what's best for my daughter. I want what's best for my son.
But that only lasts because of the tightness of the net of the community, right? You have to have that reinforcement of
for instance, the way I pointed out is like proscriptions on like sort of like foods, right? You halal foods versus haram foods, right? Versus like you're not supposed to eat shellfish or hoofed animals or unclean or pigs or whatever like that. But the practical reason for that is because you're going to get trichinosis and die because nobody knew how to like cure ham back in the day. Now, is it still a a religious doctrine for some religions, for Islam and for Orthodox Jews, for sure. I'm sure it is. But the latent purpose of that is that we don't want our people to die. We don't want them to eat shellfish because there's something in the shellfish that's killing our people, right? So it's a secular truth. Is it a best practice not to eat this animal until we figure out how to make bacon taste good? Yeah, it is. It made sense at that time. Now, is it like, well, it's handed down from God and it's in the Bible and everything? From a religious perspective, makes sense. From a secular perspective, also makes sense.
Right,
okay,
but this has a limitation, though. This has a limitation. It's already been is that not all things that are practical are moral, and so you could present someone with a situation where what's pragmatic for them and what's in the best interest for them, based on their wants and needs and desires, is actually not the moral thing to do. And so now I agree that there are some descriptive things that might be parallel. It's just that the limitation is when it comes down to the wire, doing the right thing isn't always the pragmatic thing. Go ahead, Ben.
Well, no, I was just, you were talking about how you package the prescription somehow, whether it's secular and you appeal to people's rationality or truth or mythology, you appeal to people's imagination and emotionality. Those are communication tools. It's obvious that you're seeking truth. I don't understand the good. And I just come back to, if men have responsibility but no authority, like who grants men the authority? Is it a divine right of kings? Is it a mythology? Or do we convince? It's violence. It's force. We don't have the convenience of violence. We don't have that. We're not going to do that.
Yes, ultimately, that's exactly what's going to happen.
It's eventually going to happen. So eventually we're going to either repeal the 19th or unmake the birth control pill or just descend into chaos and everything gets a hard reset.
You heard it here first. Benji wants to repeal the 19th. I'll say
I would like to know how everyone is going to do that. I would love
force, the same way we gave it. Force.
Yeah, there's inevitabilities, right? There's inevitabilities to decadence.
So, and let's see if I can go ahead, Andrew. Finish.
Yeah, well, there's inevitabilities to decadence, and we can look at the societies before us, which lasted for hundreds or thousands of years, but we can always see what happens when you have egalitarianism, currency deflation, and decadence. And every single time, it's a predation.
Is it ever corrected?
Yeah, it does. It always corrects, in fact, but it always.
Is it ever intentionally corrected before disaster?
It can't be corrected.
No, you're headed for disaster, Ben.
Okay, so I just wanted to know how black this pill was.
It's not. It's not a.
It's actually white.
It's not a black pill. It's the opposite.
No. Just slightly gray. It's slightly gray.
Sometimes people really screw this up in their heads. They're like, "Well, what kind of doomsday scenario are you, Mad Max bullshit, are you talking about?" And I always say to them, why is it that you would think that a correction coming that eliminates a lot of that decadence? Why would you think that's not the white pill? That's the ultimate white pill. That's not doomer shit.
But you can't accelerate it, though, Andrew. We don't contrive and accelerate the destruction, right?
No.
That's where people run off.
Well, the whole point is this: you're going to have one of two things, and you're going to have this in every society, in all times, in all places, everywhere, no matter what. They're either going to be decimated by war or decadence. That's what does them all in. Ultimately, in this particular society, all the Western nations, all of their stories collectively are always going to go the same. Once decadence sets in, strong men and totalitarians will rise up and they will seize power every single time. And then a correction will happen, and then comfort comes in, and then when comfort comes in, democracy comes back in, and then egalitarian principles again, and then you rinse and repeat the same fucking cycle over and over and over and over and over, and that is exactly what's going to happen to the Western nations, because we've seen it happen before. We saw it happen during World War II. We saw it happen in the early stages of World War I. The entire 20th century was an entire kind of bird's eye spectrum of what happens when egalitarian societies become too decadent and turn to strongman for leadership. Well, all hell breaks loose and society begins to correct. Suddenly you have baby booms.
Andrew, what do you mean by hell? Oh, sorry.
I don't chase booty.
So what we're looking for is the alternative to this. And the alternative to this is Renaissance. So you can either have this or you can have Renaissance. women's lib was a female renaissance, is how they perceived it. This is us finally correcting the horrors of the system and this kind of thing. But if decadence becomes too pervasive, you tend to see renaissance the other direction as well. And you can easily end up with that scenario. And that's the scenario that we prefer to move and guide to, rather than the alternative.
This is why the pressure point comes down to like that men have responsibility but no authority. Like, listen, if you want a renaissance, then men have to claim it. You claim it. You perform.
There you go.
Perform. You make the beautiful. You make the good. You proclaim it.
Absolutely. Preach. Keep going.
You plant the fucking flag and take it. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
See,
no argument.
I think I'm somewhere between Andrew and Ben in this case. I'm going to quote Coach Greg Adams really quick. Hope is not a strategy. However, hope is a necessity, because we need imagination. We need to be able to push forward. We need to think what is possible. And so I'm only going to disagree with Andrew in the sense that I don't necessarily believe in circles, right? I don't believe in like cycles, like in this sense. You've probably seen the meme where it's like, was it weak men create hard times create strong men create, good times create weak men. God, okay, we keep going in this circle. Well, and I don't know if you guys have seen any of these movies. I think was it 1918 or something like that, I think it was on. But it's like, if you look at what was happening right before World War I, everyone thought it was going to be a quick war. Everybody was just going to have a good old time until they met the first 50 caliber machine gun, and they were mowed down. Gun. Just like mowed down in droves, right? And that's what put into the minds of the kids during that time. It says, you know what, this is not going to be like our grandfather's war. We're fighting for our lives in here on an industrial scale. What I'm going to argue is that the next like collapse, the next meteor, the next war, whatever, we're going to run into something very similar. It'll probably be AI. It'll probably be like automated, like robotic weapons that'll just like gun down people in so much, carnage that we won't even, it'll be on a wholesale.
I don't know. Porn, you could say that porn is the carnage. Porn is the machine gun that just killed masculinity.
Who needs bullets? Who needs bullets?
Very good analogy, but it's one of many. Okay, so if you look at say hormonal birth, let's just even go back to I present this in my fourth book, right? When we talk about like in the Bible, right? There's the tree of knowledge that Eve ate from, and so we have the knowledge of good and evil, right? I look at it in these terms. It's like we have the atom bomb. Okay, atom bomb, atomic energy was an apple that fell off the tree of knowledge. Hormonal birth control, an apple that fell off the tree of knowledge. Now we have to deal with this shit, right? Now we have to figure out how we're going to make this work. Bang. 2000, about year 2000, the internet comes out. Now we have worldwide communication. We have globalization on a scale that we're unprepared for, right? Then we have social media. Then you have porn on a globalized scale. However we want to look at it. Next thing that's coming up, the next apple to fall off the tree, I think is probably already AI, and it's probably going to be automated weapons, and it's going to be just like the efficiency of killing people and ruling people in such an automatic way that we're simply not prepared for it, just like the kids weren't prepared for the first 50 caliber machine gun that killed all of them in World War I. That's why I don't think that there's going to be some sort of cycle. There's no pendulum that's a swing back. You only get to go forward, and you have to deal with that shit. I'm not saying don't learn from the past, but going forward, you're going to have to deal with the shit that's coming down it. And you know what? You're not even prepared for what you're going to see on the next.
You're not advocating a Kaczynski abdication of technological society and its discontent.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying deal with it. Perform, just like you were saying a minute ago. Yeah. I don't necessarily, like, I know Aaron Clary's going to shit all over me for saying this, but I don't believe in enjoy the decline. Okay. Because eventually you get to the bottom of the decline. Eventually you're fucked. And I don't want to be fucked. I want to be able to deal with it. And that's exactly the way I teach my daughter and everyone who like I have an ability to educate is like, I'm not trying to insulate you. I'm not trying to tell you how to get back to the good old days or how to back yourself into the future. I'm saying it's now and deal with it. Find a way to adapt. Find a way to kick ass. Find a way to perform. Try to thrive in the fucking chaos. Because if you can't do that, you're going to go extinct. Simple as that.
I got to bounce. It's been wonderful to meet you guys. I'm going to reach out to you all on Twitter. Sure. Thank you very much.
Very long, man.
And where can we find you, Ben?
Benjamin A. Boyce, Twitter, YouTube, conversations on podcasts. If you just want listen to me listening. I don't do as much talking as I did tonight, but thank you guys very much.
That was great, man. I'd love to talk
Thanks
to you.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate
Absolutely.
you.
I'll reach out.
Sure.
Awesome.
All right, fellas,
W.
I gotta bounce too.
Take
All
care,
right,
Rollo.
cool.
Have
Thanks,
a good
Rollo.
one. Thanks for popping on the panel. Appreciate
Take it
it.
easy,
Thanks,
brother. Nice
thanks,
meeting
Rollo.
you.
I appreciate you.